Hey guys! Today we're diving into another truly horrifying case. If you want to support my channel, make sure to subscribe and stay active. It really helps me out. I'd be super grateful for that. Let's get started. Nicole Fernanda Pozeri was a 15-year-old high school student from Mococa, São Paulo State, Brazil. School, family, first emotions. Everything was just beginning. But behind chats, romantic promises, and a trip to visit her grandmother lay a carefully constructed scheme. She traveled for vacation to Hortolândia, expecting to meet someone special. A few days later, she was found in a water reservoir, her body mutilated, dismembered, hidden under cloths and stones with a strange inscription on her back. This is not merely a tale of jealousy, it's a story of cold calculation, envy, manipulation, and utter disregard for human life. A story about minors capable of what even adults would turn away from. And about the legal system that, even fully aware of the truth, may hand down no more than 3 years in custody. Despite her young age, Nicole was admired by those around her for her kindness, manners, and inner light. She studied, loved drawing, and could spend hours immersed in sketches and imagery, as if intuitively sensing that art could say more than words. Her notebooks were filled with designs, and she dreamed of aviation. Nicole intended to become a pilot, not a hobby, not a fantasy, an actual goal she pursued. Family relationships were warm. Her mother, Priscilla, a young and caring woman, frequently said how proud she was of her daughter. On social media, she often posted photos with Nicole, writing about her with love and tenderness. Nicole was often seen surrounded by family, friends, and classmates. She was described as sociable, spontaneous, genuine. In mid-2025, when school vacation began, Nicole decided to go to Hortolândia to visit her grandmother and grandfather. This city, roughly 125 miles, about 200 kilometers from Mococa, beckoned not only for rest and a change of scenery, but also because she hoped to meet someone who had become very important to her. Enrique, a 17-year-old young man from Hortolândia, was not just an old acquaintance. They had studied together in elementary school, back when her family lived in that city. Even after Nicole's move to Mococa, they stayed in contact online, initially as friends, gradually growing into something deeper. About a month before the recent tragic events, Nicole and Enrique started dating. Their relationship developed at a distance, no in-person contact, but a deep emotional bond. For Nicole, it was her first real love, and she took it seriously. Talking to Enrique brought her joy, made her feel seen, and gave her something to look forward to. As a young teen with an open heart, Nicole didn't recognize the red flags. She had no idea that behind her hopeful expectations were intentions far from genuine. Her trip to Hortolândia wasn't just a family visit. She saw it as a step toward adulthood, a way to show independence by finally meeting someone who had become so important to her. But she couldn't have imagined that in a place filled with childhood memories, her life would take an irreversible turn. Enrique, 17, gave mixed impressions to those around him. His relatives described him as calm and quiet, but also withdrawn, emotionally distant from his family and difficult to connect with. He rarely took part in family gatherings, often stayed to himself, and even during a critical time, like when his father recently suffered a heart condition, Enrique kept his distance. His behavior raised concerns, but nothing serious enough to sound an alarm, until it was too late. He lived with his father in a house in Hortolândia. His mother was not present in his life. The home where the key events unfolded looked like any other. But behind that ordinary exterior was someone with a deeply unsettling history. Family members recalled a disturbing episode when Enrique harmed the family's cat, recorded it on video, and then buried the animal. While only a few knew about it and no serious action was taken, it was already a glaring sign of aggressive behavior and a lack of empathy. One of the most prominent people in Enrique's circle was Evelyn, a girl, his age, with whom he had a long, turbulent relationship. They had been involved for about a year, but their connection was filled with constant arguments, emotional outbursts, and repeated breakups. According to relatives, Evelyn often showed signs of aggression. In one shocking instance, she climbed over the fence of Enrique's house holding a knife, forcing his father to intervene. Despite such incidents, the two kept getting back together. Evelyn's personality raised concerns not only among Enrique's family. On social media, she openly displayed an interest in dark and unsettling topics. She posted content with disturbing themes, used usernames referencing sinister imagery, and was active in online groups with troubling content. Some users later claimed they had encountered her aggressive behavior online, including sending threats to girls who had interacted with Enrique. The relationship between Enrique and Evelyn didn't end even after he started dating Nicole. In fact, his romance with Nicole appeared to be part of a calculated plan, a way to provoke jealousy in his former partner. Nicole had no idea that Evelyn was still very much involved in Enrique's life and continued to influence him emotionally and psychologically. The environment surrounding Enrique and Evelyn was becoming increasingly toxic. Nicole unknowingly found herself caught between two individuals whose connection had long crossed the boundaries of a typical teenage relationship. Beneath Enrique's calm demeanor was someone emotionally unstable, a person whose actions would eventually lead to heartbreaking consequences. In private messages with a friend, Enrique admitted that he only started seeing Nicole after witnessing Evelyn at a party with another guy. He referred to Nicole as someone else's and expressed a strong dislike for her, going as far as saying he felt disgusted just by looking at her. In one message, he stated bluntly, "I felt disgusted when I looked at her." In another, he confessed he wanted Evelyn back and even said, "If she wants, I'll get rid of that girl she hates. I don't like her either." That message was clearly referring to Nicole. These statements revealed not just a lack of emotional attachment, but a chilling level of indifference that already pointed to something deeply troubling. All of these messages were sent before Nicole went missing. They prove Enrique never truly intended to be in a genuine relationship with her. He saw Nicole not as a person, but as a means to an end, a pawn in a manipulative game. Knowing how much she cared for him and that she was willing to travel to see him, he took advantage of her trust in a calculated and emotionally detached way. From Nicole's perspective, their relationship felt real. She genuinely believed they had something meaningful, that he felt the same way she did. So when he suggested they meet, she didn't hesitate. She had no idea that, in truth, she was merely a temporary figure in a long, volatile connection between Enrique and his ex-girlfriend. Everything unfolded against the backdrop of Enrique's obsession with winning Evelyn back. He was determined to do so at any cost, even if it meant removing what he saw as an obstacle. The idea that Evelyn gave him an ultimatum to get Nicole out of the picture came up later during the investigation. But the messages and behavior patterns suggested such a scenario was entirely plausible. One of the most striking aspects of this case is how Enrique continued to manipulate Nicole's trust until the very last moment. Even after officially ending their relationship, he invited her over again, just 2 days before the crime took place. He intentionally gave her false hope that they might reconcile, setting the stage for a premeditated plan. This behavior underscores his chilling level of calculation and emotional detachment. There was no hint of hesitation or remorse in his words or actions. Everything he did was aimed at regaining control and winning Evelyn back. From the outside, it might have looked like typical teenage drama, but in reality, it was a carefully executed sequence of psychological manipulation. Nicole was chosen, used, and ultimately betrayed. Enrique operated with cold precision, fully aware of her trust and naivety. He predicted how she would respond and turned that to his advantage. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was part of a deliberate scheme, where Nicole's emotions were treated as expendable tools, not something to be respected or protected. Nicole's first visit to Enrique took place on Saturday, July 12th. She stayed until Sunday. But during that first meeting, something unexpected happened. Enrique told her he didn't want to continue the relationship. He gave no explanation, but made it clear that it was over. For Nicole, this was devastating. Her feelings were genuine, and the breakup caught her completely off guard. When she returned to her grandparents' home, she seemed downcast but didn't go into details. No one noticed anything seriously alarming, though her emotional state had clearly shifted. Despite the breakup, Nicole didn't cut off communication with Enrique. She held on to the hope that they might reconcile, and that hope would prove to be a crucial factor in what followed. On Monday, July 14th, Enrique reached out again. He called and asked if she wanted to meet. The excuse may have been a chance to talk things over or maybe even try to restart the relationship. But in truth, it was a setup, part of a larger, prearranged plan. After the call, Nicole told her grandmother she wanted to visit Enrique once more. Since she had already been to his house before, no one raised any concerns. Her leaving didn't seem unusual. Nicole left during the day, expecting to spend a little time with him and return by evening. But this time, she never came back. That evening, her grandmother tried calling her, but Nicole didn't answer. The first signs of worry came the following day, when more family members started calling and getting no response. It's important to note that on the day of that final meeting, Enrique's father was home during the afternoon. However, he later stated he didn't see Nicole. According to him, she must have arrived after he left for his overnight shift. The next morning, when he returned from work, his son wasn't home, and there were no signs that anyone else had been there. This coincided with the time when Nicole's family had already begun to worry and started taking steps to find her. Enrique's behavior after Nicole went missing immediately raised suspicions. When her family began searching for her and reached out to him, he claimed they had broken up and that she left his house on her own. But when pressed for details, he gave vague answers, avoided specifics, and showed no real concern about what might have happened to her. His version of events didn't add up. If Nicole had truly left his place, where did she go? Why hadn't she returned? Why wasn't she answering her phone? Her loved ones quickly realized his story didn't align with her usual habits. No one she knew had heard of any other plans. All signs pointed to her going to see Enrique, and then disappearing without a trace. It was sudden, unexplained, and deeply out of character. The only person who might have known what really happened was saying almost nothing. And then, not long after the search began, Enrique himself vanished. He stopped answering calls, avoided his home, and when he did respond by phone, he claimed he had left town because of supposed threats. To both the family and the police, it looked like he was running. Later, investigators concluded that the second invitation Enrique extended to Nicole had been part of a prearranged plan. Her visit on July 14th would be her last. According to the findings, that's the day the crime occurred, inside Enrique's home. Everything that followed was part of a carefully executed plan. Nicole's grandfather went to the nearest police station in Hortolandia and filed an official missing person report. Her mother, Priscilla, launched an urgent campaign on social media, posting photos and asking for help. Friends, neighbors, and classmates joined in. The news of Nicole's disappearance spread fast. People began reposting, searching for clues, and sharing theories. But despite all the efforts, there were no updates over the next 24 hours. Not from Nicole, and not from anyone who might have seen her. Concerning signs started coming from Enrique's father. While checking the house, he noticed things that didn't make sense. Muddy footprints inside, as if someone had come in wearing wet shoes. Even more alarming were stains resembling blood, found in the living room, kitchen, and bathroom. At first, he tried to get answers himself, calling his son repeatedly, but Enrique either ignored the calls or gave evasive replies. Eventually, the father decided to involve law enforcement. Enrique's family quickly realized this situation was far more serious than a typical teenage argument. They didn't try to hide what they found. In fact, they insisted the house be examined by a forensic team. They even told investigators they believed the evidence could be connected to Nicole. Enrique's relatives handled the situation in a way that stood out. They didn't make excuses, didn't try to shield him, and didn't obstruct the investigation. His father kept messaging him, urging him to speak to the police and come clean. but those messages went unanswered. The only reply came the next day when Enrique claimed he was innocent and had nothing to do with Nicole's disappearance. Meanwhile, the search for Nicole continued, but there were no signs of her, no activity on her bank card, no posts on social media, no new messages or calls. Everything pointed to her disappearance happening shortly after her final meeting with Enrique, within a very narrow time frame. At the same time, investigators began interviewing friends and family members of both Nicole and Enrique. From these conversations, the first pieces of the puzzle began to form. It became clear that their relationship had started only recently, lasting about a month, and that Enrique had previously dated a girl named Evelyn. Based on this information, authorities began to suspect that Enrique might have been involved with both girls at the same time around the period when Nicole went missing. The investigation moved quickly, as each passing hour without new leads increased the chances of a tragic outcome. The lack of surveillance footage, eyewitness accounts, or cell phone pings made the case especially difficult. It wasn't until special units joined the effort and anonymous tips started coming in that the investigation took a more focused turn. Family members reported that there had been a garden cart at Enrique's home, which disappeared shortly after Nicole's visit. Investigators believed it may have been used to move a body to a nearby reservoir. They also discovered that less than a third of a mile from the house, about 500 yards, there was a small lake-like lagoon in the Jardim Amanda area. On July 18th, 4 days after Nicole was last seen, the municipal guard, along with a K9 handler and a dog named Thor, began searching the area. Thor was guided using Nicole's clothing to pick up her scent. After several hours of combing through the location, the dog signaled at the water's edge. There, authorities found a body wrapped in 2 bed sheets and a blue plastic tarp. Large stones had been placed on top, likely in an attempt to weigh it down and conceal it underwater. The condition of the body revealed signs of extreme aggression. Multiple stab wounds, bruising on the face and torso, and missing limbs that, according to forensic experts, had likely been removed before the body was moved. These injuries pointed to a deliberate and highly aggressive act intended to both harm and disfigure. In addition to the physical harm, investigators found a marking on Nicole's back. It was a set of letters, PCC, an acronym associated with a well-known criminal group in Brazil. At first glance, this could have suggested a connection to organized crime. However, law enforcement quickly ruled out any actual involvement by such organizations. No evidence supported the idea that this was anything more than a misleading clue. Authorities concluded that the marking was deliberately placed to mislead investigators and steer the case in the wrong direction. Several key elements confirmed the identity of the victim. Nicole's family recognized a black cord necklace she always wore, and the physical characteristics of the body matched hers. Family members, including her mother and father, were brought to the scene. Witnesses and reporters described the family's emotional reaction, and even seasoned investigators admitted they were deeply shaken by the extreme level of aggression involved in the case. Evidence collected at Enrique's house strongly linked the location to the crime. Investigators found a partially burned mattress in the backyard, blood traces, muddy footprints, and the missing garden cart. The sheets found at the discovery site also resembled linens from the home. Based on this, authorities developed a preliminary theory. Nicole lost her life inside the house, and afterward, her body was dismembered, wrapped in household materials, placed in the cart, and transported to the nearby lagoon. The particularly brutal nature of the crime, combined with the attempt to mimic the markings of a known gang, confirmed that this was a premeditated act, not a spontaneous outburst. Investigators ruled out the possibility of an impulsive confrontation. After Nicole's body was found, the focus shifted to uncovering the exact sequence of events. At this point, Enrique had already gone missing and was being actively sought by police. During a second search of the home, officers discovered a power saw that may have been used to dismember the body. Enrique's family confirmed the tool belonged to them. Investigators also found pieces of clothing with reddish stains believed to be blood. All this supported the conclusion that the crime took place at the residence. These findings built on previously known facts and helped law enforcement construct a coherent and evidence-based timeline. It was at this point that Evelyn became a person of interest. Until then, she hadn't been considered a direct participant. However, new witness statements and analysis of phone records shifted the investigation's focus. Another major development came when it was revealed that on July 15th, after Nicole had already passed away, a message was sent from her phone to a group chat with friends. At first, this created the illusion that she might still be alive. But forensic analysis later confirmed the message hadn't been written by Nicole. It was sent using her phone after the estimated time of her death. This discovery became a critical piece of the puzzle. Investigators determined the message was a deliberate attempt to fake Nicole's activity on messaging apps, likely meant to delay the search and throw off the timeline. This action was interpreted as part of a larger plan to cover up the crime. The use of her phone to send that message showed the suspects had planned elements of misdirection in an effort to confuse both friends and authorities. At this stage of the investigation, not only was the case against Enrique strengthened, but Evelyn also emerged as a central suspect. Both teens had gone completely off the radar, and their whereabouts were unknown. Their actions, disappearing, giving misleading explanations, staying silent, indicated a level of awareness and an intent to evade responsibility. With each passing day, the case increasingly pointed to a deliberate, premeditated act carried out not by one, but by two minors working together. Once Nicole's disappearance was formally reported and her body was recovered, authorities shifted their focus to locating the suspects. Despite attempts by the teens to create the illusion that they were running due to outside threats, law enforcement continued targeted searches in nearby areas, suspecting they might still be close to the scene of the crime. That theory proved correct. On July 20th, 2025, 6 days after Nicole's body was discovered, police, with the help of colleagues from the state of Paraná, tracked down a specific location. In the town of Cornelio Procopio, both Enrique and Evelyn were found at a house belonging to the grandmother of one of the teens. The relative had been hiding them and had not contacted the authorities. The operation to detain them went smoothly, with no resistance. Both teens were taken into custody and brought in for questioning. During the initial interviews, they admitted to being involved. Enrique confessed that he had lured Nicole to the house under the pretense of a reconciliation and then, together with Evelyn, committed the act. He also revealed that they had discussed the plan ahead of time, including what he described as the intent to deal with Nicole. According to investigators, Evelyn was not only aware of the plan, but was present at the home when the crime occurred. Evidence suggested that their actions were coordinated. Following their confessions and arrests, the case entered the next phase. Legal review. Police classified the event as an intentional crime under aggravating circumstances involving bodily dismemberment, concealment of evidence, and the participation of multiple individuals. Despite the severity of the case, the suspect's age limited the punishment options under Brazilian law. However, investigators pushed for the maximum possible sentence, citing the level of cruelty, organization, and emotional detachment shown by both individuals. On July 20th, 2025, Nicole was laid to rest in her hometown of Mococa. The farewell was marked by overwhelming grief. Family, neighbors, friends, and even strangers, shaken by the cruelty of what had happened, gathered at the cemetery to say goodbye to a girl whose life had been ended in such a horrific way. Her mother, Priscilla, was in deep shock and did not speak publicly on the day of the funeral. Later, once she had regained some strength, she made one thing clear. She wasn't looking for pity. She wanted justice. Despite the full reconstruction of the crime and direct confessions from those involved, the court was unable to impose criminal penalties on the accused. Under Brazilian law, individuals under the age of 18 cannot be prosecuted under the criminal code. Instead, they fall under the jurisdiction of the Estatuto da Criança e do Adolescente, ECA. the statute designed to protect the rights of minors. This law allows for a maximum penalty of up to 3 years in a closed rehabilitation facility, with mandatory reviews of their status every 6 months. Following their arrest, Enrique and Evelyn were placed in such a facility, Fundação Casa, where they await further decisions from a juvenile court judge. The initial order of 45 days under supervision was already approved and may be extended up to the legal maximum of 3 years. The outcome sparked widespread public outrage. Across social media, local news outlets, community activists, and even government figures voiced their frustration at what they saw as a punishment severely out of proportion with the nature of the crime. Nicole's mother made a public statement saying, "My daughter didn't get a chance to grow up, and those who took her life will be free before they even become legal adults." Her words captured not only personal grief, but also a profound sense of helplessness in the face of a legal system that, in her eyes, offered no real justice for serious acts of violence committed by minors. The family insisted that this was not a teen argument gone wrong, it was a deliberate act of aggression, showing no signs of remorse or emotional instability. The public reaction extended far beyond São Paulo. Online petitions began circulating, calling for revisions to the ECA and the creation of legal tools to impose stricter penalties on minors involved in premeditated crimes. In several Brazilian cities, demonstrations were held under the banner Justiça por Nicole. Protesters demanded legislative changes so that such acts would not go unanswered in the public eye, even if technically addressed by current law. Legal experts involved in the public discussion explained that the framework for juvenile responsibility was crafted in the 1990s, largely in response to the social vulnerability of young people at the time. But they argued that the nature of offenses involving minors has evolved significantly. Nicole's case became a prime example of how a well-meaning humanitarian law can conflict with the gravity of real-world consequences. Commentators warned that such leniency could be perceived as indifference toward victims. For Nicole's family, this case is about more than police reports and courtroom decisions. It's about preserving her memory and making sure society understands that she wasn't just another statistic. Nicole's name has become a symbol of protest against complacency and neglect. News stories about the case continue to circulate. It's discussed in schools, online forums, and legislative panels. This event marked a turning point for many people who, perhaps for the first time, saw how age can act as a legal shield from serious accountability. While the court's ruling may be constrained by the law, the public's moral judgment remains, and it continues to echo loudly. Nicole's story has become more than a case file. It's a call for justice, change, and remembrance. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.